Hello, my name is Friday Salmon Mujage from Edukea Tanzania. I'm a history teacher, so I welcome you to proceed with today's lesson where we are going to see our proceeding topic, which is nationalism and decolonization, as the second topic in Form 4. So on the last session we ended on the looking the independent churches which were formed after the Second World War, or in 1914s. It means, so we saw various examples of independent churches like the Water Tower in Tanzania, the Church of Spirit of the Church of Spirit, and other examples of independent churches. But we saw the strength or the contribution of independent churches to the lives of African nationalism as well as weakness. So today we are going to see another social welfare and association which were formed, and we have already seen the first association which was independent churches, and the second one is workers association or trade unions. These were formed by workers to address their grievances such as poor education, low wages, poor health facilities, lack of representative in local council, and the discrimination at working place. To mean that these were the workers association or trade unions which were formed by the workers of Africa or African community in the working station. And these were formed by the workers to address their grievances or their demands to the colonial masters or to the colonialists. For example, the poor education service which were provided to the Africans. The low wages means the workers were paid low wages or they got low payments. Another was poor health facilities. It means the health which was provided by the colonialists was poor, and the lack of representative in local council. It means the Africans had no representative to the local council, so the Africans wanted or demanded that right or grievance. Another, or the last one, was discrimination at working place. Meaning the Africans were discriminated at the working place, or were discriminating by the colonialists at the working place. So those worker unions or trade unions or workers associations come up with the aim of removing or eliminating those or grievances which were made them to suffer in different activities. So we can see the examples of the trade unions or workers associations, and the first one was Tanganyika Territory Civil Servants Association, TTCSA, formed in Tanga by Martin Kayamba in 1922. It means that this was the amongst of the trade union or of the workers association which was formed by that time. It specifically was formed in Tanganyika, which were formed in Tanga by Martin Kayamba in 1922. The another example was the African Association, which was formed in 1929, which later became TAA or TAA in Tanganyika. Another was Young Kavilondo Association, formed by students led by their teacher Jonathan Okwil in Kenya. It means that the Young Kavilondo was another example of workers association or trade unions, whereby those students of Young Kavilondo were formed their association due to the poor education service or poor education which were provided to them. So they come up to form the association of students, and that association was led by their teacher known as Jonathan Okwil in Kenya. And the last example of workers' association or trade union was the Kikuyu Central Association, formed in 1924 by Joseph Kangetse. It means that the Kikuyu Central Association formed in 1924 by Joseph Kangetse. It means that this was a trade union which was formed in a Kikuyu area or Kikuyu Islands with the workers of Kikuyu plantations or Kikuyu settlers plantations. So they formed it to eliminate the poor working conditions, the long hours, and the low wages which were paid by those workers. So they come up to form their association or trade union in order to rise up or to air up their grievances which were deprived by the colonialists. So after looking at the examples, let us go to another social welfare and association which was formed during that time. This was tribal associations. It means that tribal association, and these tribal associations, these were associations which were formed according to the tribe of the group of the people. It means the one tribe who could come or could emerge and to form the association for demanding the rights concerning with that tribe. These were the ethnic organizations formed by the members of a certain tribe to address specific grievances in tribes such as poor health services, poor education, and the absence of representative in local authority. It means that the tribal association were the organizations which were formed by the certain tribe to demand their grievances which were not provided in such certain tribe. For example, poor health services, the poor education service, and the absence of representative in local authority or local council. So these were immediately, and you can find the examples like Kikuyu tribe were formed their association there in Kenya. So you can see, and Kenya was the amongst of the British colony, and that's why she tried to attain the independence, because Kenya was comprised by the tribalism policy or tribalism strategy. So they used the tribes in demanding the independence. Another example, another form of welfare and the association or social welfare and association was peasant associations. To me, the peasants or the farmers, peasant associations. These were formed by the farmers to air the grievances, for example, low price of their crops. And to me that the peasant association, these were the group of farmers who were cultivating in the cash crops like cocoa, cotton, sisal, coffee, tea, rubber, and the other cash crops which were needed by the colonialists in order to satisfy their industry in their homeland. So these were the peasants who wanted to rise up their grievances which were denied by the colonialists. For example, the low prices of the crops. It means that the colonialists were fixing the low price to the African cash crops, considered to the European cash crops. So the crops of Africans or the farmers of African community were fixed by low prices. So that's they come up to form the associations which will rise up their voice to demand the colonialists to increase or to rise up the price of their crops or their cash crops. Examples of peasant associations included or formed like Kilimanjaro Native Planters Association, formed by Joseph Mourinho in 1925. It means that Kilimanjaro Native Planters association formed by Joseph Mourinho. These were among of the peasant association which was in Kilimanjaro, and their founder was Joseph Mourinho in 1925. Another example was Kikuyu Association. This was in Kenya, and it was formed in Kenya, Kikuyu Islands, where those people were cultivating tea in Kenya. So another example, the Young Buganda Association, founded in 1920. It means that the Young Buganda Association founded in Buganda or in Uganda by the present time. It was the Young Buganda Association founded in 1920 to rise up their grievances or their demands to the colonial masters. So these were the social welfares and the associations. I've told you that the first one was independent churches, the second one was the workers' association or trade unions, the third one was tribal associations, and the last one was peasant association. So the social welfare and the associations, we have seen the almost for social welfare and the associations. So after looking at that, let us jump to another chapter or another part, which is forms of African nationalism. It means the African nationalism was done in various ways or forms or methods or techniques. It means that the demanding of African nationalism was seen at the three forms, namely the peaceful or constitutional way or method, armed struggle method, and the last one was revolutionary method. So these were the three ways or methods which were used as the form of demanding the freedom or independence. We will see one after another, and the countries or the case study of countries which were involved in using these forms of. So after looking the forms which were used in struggle for your African independence, as I have told you, that was peaceful means, constitutional method, peaceful means or constitutional method, the armed struggle, and the revolutionary methods. So these were under the concept of mass nationalism and the rise of political parties. So in the case of political parties, I have left it purposefully for you to extract it and come up with the ideas about the political party. So the mass nationalism came up with three methods of struggling for the independence. As I have told you, there were three: peaceful, armed struggle, and the revolutionary method. So let us start with the peaceful method. It means peaceful method or constitutional method. This was the decolonization method through peaceful way and the diplomatic negotiation with colonial masters to grant the independence. It means that this was the method or the method of demanding independence by the Africans, whereby the peaceful way and the negotiations or diplomatic negotiations were taking place or were involved with the colonial masters to negotiate on how those colonial masters will grant the independence to the Africans without bloodshed and direct or actual wars. For example, of nations which were employed constitutional or peaceful way, or which attained their independence or freedom through peaceful methods, was like Tanganyika, by present now it's called Tanzania. There is Uganda and Ghana, or the coast of gold, it is Ghana. So let us see the case study of peaceful method or constitutional methods of demanding for the independence. Decolonization in Tanganyika as a case study. So we are going to use Tanzania or Tanganyika as a case study that used the peaceful method in demanding or struggling for independence. The conditions which facilitated constitutional methods struggle for independence in Tanganyika were as follows. It means that the conditions which made Tanganyika or other countries which was used the constitutional methods were under triggered by the various reasons or factors as follows. The first one, Tanganyika was a mandatory territory colony under British since 1945. It means that there are some countries in Africa which were placed under the mandatory territory, as the UN was declared that the victory power should place those African countries which were under German and allies, that those countries must be prepared for their self-rule. So Tanganyika was under British rule or British since the end of the Second World War. So you can see that Tanganyika being under the mandatory territory, and the UN was making the frequent delegation or frequent overcheck on British rule on how the time when it will arrive will grant the independence to Tanganyika. So that's why made Tanganyika to use the peaceful method and not other ways of demanding their independence. Another was the role played by mass media such as Sauti ya Tano newspaper. It means that Tanganyika employed a peaceful way or constitutional method because they used the mass media in demanding or struggling for independence. For example, the Sauti ya Tano newspaper, it means this was the press or the mass media which was called the Sauti ya Tano newspaper. So this newspaper was used to spread the message of struggling for independence all over Tanganyika. So many Tanganyikans were aware on how their nations are struggling for attaining the self-rule from the domination of British government. So that's why in 1961 under Julius Kambarage Nyerere, Tanganyika attained independence from the British colony or British government. Another was the wide use of Kiswahili language as the lingua franca in the Tanganyika or in Tanganyika. To me that Tanganyika was the one language which was usually worldwide, the country or countrywide. To mean that the Kiswahili language was usually as the lingua franca, as usually as the means of communication and spreading the ideas of independence or struggling for independence all over the Tanganyikans. So even in region-wise, Kiswahili language was used to spread the idea and the message of freedom or independence among the Tanganyikans. So you can see the Kiswahili language united all Tanganyikans to use a single language that was enabled the Tanganyikans to attain the independence through peaceful way. But another was the role of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, or the role of town leader by that time, who was known as Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. So the role of that leader was diplomatic and educated man. So Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere used his education and the diplomatic strategies and the techniques which he attained during the era of his education. That strategies were used to negotiate peacefully and diplomatic with the colonial masters or colonial governors on how they will grant the independence of Tanganyika. So Mwalimu Julius Kambarage with the techniques or diplomatic techniques which he employed to demand the independence of Tanganyika. That's why he made Tanganyika to attain or to decolonize the British rule under the peaceful or constitutional method. But another was the absence of settlers in the colony. It means in Tanganyika there were no settlers compared to other nations like Kenya, Zimbabwe, and other nations. So in Tanganyika there were no settlers. It was peasant economy or peasant agriculture that was taking place in Tanganyika. So it was easy to mobilize the Africans without any suppression from the settlers because they were not there. So Tanganyika, that's why I preferred to use the peaceful or constitutional method in demanding independence. Another part, let us see the problems or the problems which experienced during the struggle for independence in Tanganyika, or the problems experienced during the struggle for independence among the Tanganyikans. So these are the problems. The first one was opposition from political parties. Opposition from other political parties. Political parties like African National Congress and the United Tanganyika parties. So you can see that these were other political parties which were competing with TANU, so that they can attain the power after the independence of Tanganyika. So these parties were emphasizing on racial segregation because they were almost formed by the Arabs. So these parties were opposing strongly the TANU and their leadership. So this was the major problems which were faced the Tanganyikans during their struggle for their independence. But another problem that faced the Tanganyikans during the struggle for their independence was the strong opposition from the British government to ban TANU, as it was considered as an illegal movement. It means that the strong opposition from the government of Britain or the British government was strongly opposed the introduction of political parties known as TANU and the other parties. So TANU was illegal, was called as illegal movement by the colonial masters of British rule. So that was another problem that faced the Tanganyikans and their leaders in struggling for the independence. And another problem was the remoteness of some interior parts of Tanganyika. It means that there are some parties in Tanganyika which were not remoted or were not open delayed. So those areas could be difficult for the nationalists to go there and spread the message of independence, because there are no laws that can take them towards that party of the Tanganyika. So it could be difficult for that area to be preaching that idea of independence. So in local areas or interior parts of Tanganyika, the message was not conveyed in that part. So that's why it was considered as a problem that was experienced during the struggle for independence in Tanganyika. And the last one was lack of enough funds to support the spread of idea of freedom in Tanganyika. To me, that the Tanganyikans with their leader lacked the enough funds that fund which could help them to print the petitions, the newspapers, and the transportation fees, and buying of fuel for fueling those vehicles which could be used in spreading the idea of freedom. So the lack of funds that could be used to pay the leaders and the other nationalistic frontiers were not paid it, so that made some leaders or some personnel to withdraw out from that movement, and it was considered as the problem that they experienced during the struggle for independence in Tanganyika. So after looking the strengths or the reasons or conditions that make Tanganyika to use constitution methods or peaceful way of demanding for independence, and we have seen the problems experienced during the struggle for independence, I would like to give you an exercise. As I've told you, there is some part which I didn't explain. Like the first question will touch on the part of explain the reasons for the rise of mass nationalism. It is the part which I have jumped it. And the second, it is analyze the strengths of political parties and their weaknesses. So these are the parts which you have to extract yourself, make a research, study early, and come up with the answers of tackling these questions. So until there, this is the end of our lesson. I thank you for being with me until the end of the lesson. So thank you and bye bye.